Fans shocked as leaks reveal PlayStation believes games will cost around $80 to $100 by 2027. Oh, man. So, Insomniac Games faced a massive data leak recently, and the public got an insider view of private matters. Some documents have been discovered by them stating an increase in game prices up to $100 marked by 2027. An increase in prices in gaming had been noticeable after the release of PlayStation 5, which caused debates among consumers. Generational increases in gaming prices have been a topic of discussion among gamers for a long time. Compared to PS2 generation games, modern titles cost almost $30 to $40 more due to technical upgrades, raising a huge debate among the community on how publishers are overcharging consumers for modern games. This increase in price for PlayStation games can be blamed on the global market inflation. For instance, games in 2001 cost about $50, which seems cheaper compared to now at first sight. If studied in depth, $50 in the 2000s is equivalent to nearly $90 according to current market standards. Thus, games costing about $70 now prove the fact that games are cheaper in the current market. Looking at the average annual... Now, okay, look, and I'll stick to this, okay? The difference being, in the 2000s, $50 was getting you everything in a game. Everything in the 2000s, right? There was very little that was going on with downloadable content, things like that in the 2000s. Later 2000s, yeah, more of that. Early 2000s, not nearly as much. So the difference being that nowadays we deal with a lot more monetization schemes that allow publishers and developers to get their money out of us without raising retail prices. They get their money out of us through battle passes, season passes, DLC content that's ready on the release of a game, as well as, microtransaction shops, you name it, dude. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. They get their money. Do not ever doubt that. Thus, games cost about $70 now. Prove the fact that games are cheaper in the current market. Retail, off the shelf, they might be cheaper, but in the long run, no. Looking at the average annual earning data of U.S. citizens, there's been an increase in wages by 17%, while games have seen a decrease in valuation by 22%, according to current market standards. In the eyes of common folk, hobby appears to be getting more expensive in the coming years, but in reality, that is not the case, as it is only a result of market changes. You are being short-sighted here. Price increase projection for PlayStation has gotten netizens talking, and Sony faced major backlash as consumers have started to raise the question of who will pay $100 for just games. Some even claim that gaming has always been an expensive hobby to begin with. Publishers have always received flack for raising game prices, just like PlayStation is facing now. Every time publishers increase the price of games, it has always seen public disapproval globally. For instance, Activision faced heavy backlash from fans for its pricing of various editions of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. Back in 2013, Rockstar faced a similar predicament for releasing GTA 5 at $60 pricing for PlayStation 3. When PlayStation announced the increase of game prices by $10 for the PS5 console, fans got furious about it. Earlier, the company used to sell its games at the $60 mark to the release of next-generation hardware. The inflation pricing applied towards PS Plus as well, which was implemented without any announcements. Even though PS Plus has been a hot piece of garbage for the kinds of games they've released for that subscription service, and it doesn't even provide the same level of what Game Pass does. And what I mean by that is, Game Pass, Xbox gives you day one releases for their console. On PC, console, you get that on the subscription service. If a game is coming out from Xbox as a first-party proprietary game, you get that day one on their subscription service every time. Sony has said they'll never do that, but they're charging the same amount of money and they're not giving you as good as options every month. I don't know how they feel like they can get away with that. Apparently they are. Apparently they have enough people that have bought into the premise of just solely being PlayStation gamers that they're willing to pay that. But it's gross. According to a report made by a Japanese media house, Nikkei Capcom president, yeah, we read about this as well. Haruhiro Sugimoto said game development costs have gone up since the late 2000s, and also stated the following: there is also a need to raise wages. Considering the fact that wages are rising in the industry as a whole, I think raising unit prices is a healthy option for business. The statement caused a lot of debate among the gaming community as Capcom managed to pull in massive profits over the years, so gamers raised the question of whether it is market inflation that is causing a rise in the price of games. Leaving the backlashes aside, market inflation has caused a lot of trouble to common people, professionals, and artists in general. Game developers face these issues and work hard to see an increase in their pay grade. Companies are trying hard to support their workers and continue running their businesses, so increased game prices aren't that big of a surprise in a recession period like this. I'll go back to what I said before. I am not unreasonable. We talked about this at the beginning of the day. I'm not unreasonable. There's no need to read into that. But when it comes to how I feel about paying for a piece of entertainment, if I'm playing a game and it's giving me a substantial amount of time into it as something that is I'm able to dive in there for 50 plus hours or whatever, that's absolutely worth a an investment in that product. But what this industry is trying to do is say that all games on the AAA front basically should just be raised to a standardized price tag, and that's not fair. Absolutely not. Right? So they want to go, well, all games are just going to cost $80 to $100 by 2027. Get wrecked. Because as we all know, and as we talked about a little bit earlier too, like Tinwin pointed out, is Spider-Man 2 a banger of a game? Yeah, it is. Apparently. I haven't played it, but Spider-Man 2 is supposed to be a very good game. But is 20 hours of gameplay worth $80 to $100? Most people are going to feel like, 20 hours worth of gameplay to beat a game is worth $80 to $100? I sure don't. Everybody's going to feel a little bit different about that, but I'm sorry. I'm much more apt to pay $80 to $100 for an experience like Baldur's Gate 3, right? Which I now have like 150 hours in, than I am to pay $80 to $100 for something like Spider-Man 2, which you're going to beat in 20 hours. So, for these companies to be trying to standardize this industry with AAA releases and go, well, we need to raise prices again. They just raised prices on us. And this article is short-sighted. I'm sorry, but it is. For them to go, well, a game, back in the 2000s was equivalent to a $90 price tag now, so really we're paying less. No, we are not. We are not paying less. We are actually constantly being monetized through different schemes in games. So you want to talk about Capcom saying that the dev job's hard. Look, I think the dev job is hard. I think that video game development is a difficult process. I've always said that. I don't think it's an easy thing, right? But I think there's something to be said for doing it right, yeah, and being compensated appropriately. We live in a world where the video gaming industry is constantly baiting us with spending as much on the project side of marketing, sales and marketing and promotion of these games, right? I know you're kind of like trolling me a little bit, but you're not wrong in bringing up an important fact here, right? These big AAA companies want to go, yo, we need to raise prices, right? We need to raise prices of these games because they're so expensive to make. But when you look at their budgets, right, AAA games now are easily hitting, 2, 3, 4, $500 million budgets. Easy. Sometimes GTA 6 breaking $1 billion threshold, apparently, right? And how much of that budget is actually going to the game development as opposed to the actual promotion of the products themselves? Yeah, at least half of that budget is going into just promotion and marketing of these products. Then what happens with half of the products when they release? They're not even finished. They're hot pieces of garbage. And then these companies want to act like it shouldn't matter, that we should just pay a standardized price across the board for everything. Get wrecked. No. Shouldn't work like that. I am absolutely understanding of, dude, I would pay way more than what I paid for BG3 because I've gotten a ton of content out of it, and it's amazing content. And I respect the crap out of Larian for making a banger game, not putting monetization in it. You know, these are the kinds of companies that need to be raised up and need to be supported. They didn't put a substantial price tag on it. Paid $60 for that game on PC, and I've gotten over 150 hours into that game now. Right? It's exceptional all the way around. Did it have a little bit of, you know, fixing that needed to be done after it released? Yeah, most games do, especially a game of this caliber, of this magnitude. Absolutely, and I'm understanding of that. But it felt at least fairly complete on release, from what I understand. I didn't start playing it until November, but on full release felt pretty complete, as opposed to a lot of other games that you can't even play on release because they're solely not finished, but they release them anyways, and they want us to pay now $80 to $100 for these games that you can beat in 15 hours, 15 to 20 hours, and you can't even really play them on release because they're a dumpster fire. Get wrecked, dude. No way. Not even taking into account of what this article said about how asinine it is. And I'll go back to like Capcom's president. You know, I talked about this before. Capcom's president was like, well, we need to start raising retail prices of games. And this was right after they had released Exoprimal. Exoprimal was such a huge wallet bait. It was AAA price tag. It did come out on subscription services, so I'll give them that. But it was still a AAA price tag of a game that was so repetitive, and was just riddled with microtransactions. That's all it was. It was something that they developed to be good enough gameplay-wise that they could incorporate as much monetization as possible because they got a lot of other branding they could throw in there. They put Street Fighter skins in it, all kinds of other stuff, right? And to try and bait people into just opening those wallets up. You know? That game should have been free to play, if anything. People got to really take a critical look at what's going on here. And what is actually worth our money and what is not worth our money, right? People are paying AAA price tag for a game like Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 3. They gave, what, a 5-hour campaign? Let's be fair. Most people buy that game for the online mode, but even that, people are ripping that game apart. That game has a 30% positive rating on Steam right now. Even on Metacritic, it's pretty terrible, man. Compared to other titles, right? Metacritic. What are we looking at here? It's a 56 from critics. A 56 from critics. And it's a 1.9 from user reviews. This is about to become the best-selling game of the year. And this is a AAA price tagged game. So what we need to be spending, look, I mean, $70 for the base game. You know what I mean? Are you for real? This is the kind of crap that deserves to have the price raised on it? No, absolutely not. If anything, they should probably just be giving this piece of crap away. So people need to be more educated about like what's going on here, and we need to be more deliberate on what we're spending our money on in this industry. These companies think that it's going to be okay to just like standardize price increases across the board. I've got an article that's going to be going up on YouTube later today about Nintendo doing this too, and Nintendo's the worst. Okay, Nintendo's the worst because while they do release pretty polished games and pretty good content, their games never reduce in price. They always make people double dip because they never let you play. If you bought a game on the Switch that also comes out on the new hardware, you probably will have to buy it again. Just like they've always done with their other hardware, right? Mario Kart 8, Wii U. If you had it on the Wii U, were you going to get to play it on the Switch? Absolutely not. You had to re-buy it, right? And at what price point? AAA price tag. It never, hardly ever goes on sale, and they never go down in price point, right? So when you talk about these standardized prices going up and up and up, and Nintendo, like take Nintendo for example, it's never going to come down. It always stays up. Hardly ever even goes on sale, and even if it does go on sale, it's going to go straight back up to that price point, right? And then they're making you double, triple dip on that stuff because they don't give you any kind of backwards compatibility. It gets real nasty, man. So I don't know, people got to be more careful about what's going on here, be more educated about what's happening, and we got to do everything we can to prevent this kind of crap from happening to us. This is disgusting, man. It's already super expensive, dude. The industry is already super expensive. Do I think that game development is necessarily a very cheap thing? No, I don't. But there are good ways about going about getting it done, and bad ways about going and getting it done. And we always suffer the consequences, right, as the consumer. There aren't a whole lot of companies out there doing it the right way. And those are the ones that we need to be supporting. The ones that do it the wrong way, almost always on the constant, we're the ones that suffer the consequences. We're the ones that are paying for that. We just got to be more careful about it, man.